Tune in every Tuesday morning from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. for Faith Works with Pastor Jimmy Ellison. Pastor Ellison has the privilege of interviewing leaders in Newnan who are making a kingdom impact, modeling for our community that faith does indeed work. So don't miss an episode of Faith Works with Pastor Jimmy Ellison, Tuesday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., only on WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key.
Hey, I'm Jimmy Ellison. I'm the pastor here at Newnan City Church. I want to thank you. You'll find as you walk through that we focus on three areas primarily. One is worship, small groups, and local missions. And our purpose is transforming lives for Jesus' sake, helping individuals experience that transformation. And we use these three areas, worship, small groups, and local missions, to help individuals experience that. So you'll get a sense of who Newnan City Church is, and I hope that you'll come and worship with us soon. Take care, and God bless.
The views and opinions expressed during this broadcast do not necessarily reflect the beliefs of this radio station, its management, or its sponsors. Listeners are urged to use their own discernment to draw their own conclusions.
It's now time for Faith Works with Pastor Jimmy Ellison from Newnan City Church.
Good morning. My name is Hank Arnold. I'm sitting in for Pastor Jimmy this morning on Faith Works, where we hear stories from different community leaders who are showing that faith does indeed work. Today, my guest is Wayne Stewart, and he'll be here talking with us today about faith and recovery. And let me go ahead for some of the listeners that may not be familiar with what our definition of recovery is. Recovery for me is defined as an act of change in ideas and attitude, but the other piece for me is, my name is Hank Arnold. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and what that means for me is I haven't had a drink or a drug in a little over 9 years. And as a result of my recovery, all kinds of really cool opportunities have happened for me. And faith and community definitely play a major role in my recovery. One of the things that attracted me to Wayne early on is that he is also a person in recovery, and I know that his faith has played a big part in his recovery. So, Wayne, we're glad to have you on. How are you doing this morning?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on here. How does this feel being here, being interviewed?
It's better than a police interrogation, I can tell you that.
We're glad you're here and glad to have you. And one of the things that attracted me to even asking you and inviting you to come on and do this is, we haven't known each other very long, maybe 6 to 9 months, but I know you have a story of redemption. I know that your faith plays a major role in where you are, and it also plays a major role in how you're pushing forward through some of the difficult times that you faced as a result of addiction.
Yes. Where I'm at now is, if you said a few minutes ago, what was the definition of recovery to you? For me, the definition for recovery to me is 10%, taken away from mood-altering substances, and 90% lifestyle change in the way that I think, act, deal with certain situations, react to people, because those character defects that I have to work on a daily basis is what takes me back to my personal struggles, which is substance abuse. If you had to ask me what the definition of, what the opposite of addiction is, most people are going to say sobriety. If you had to ask me what the opposite of addiction is, it's connection. Mm-hmm. If I am not connected to people, if I'm not connected to network, if I'm not connected to a personal relationship with God of my understanding, which is Jesus Christ, then I find myself in isolation. And when I isolate, I got to remember that my very best thinking got me to the dope house.
Right. Well, so when we define recovery, it's bigger than a drink or a drug. This is about really embracing a lifestyle change. That's what you're saying, right?
It is. Yes.
Yeah. So give me a little bit of your background, and you don't have to get into the nitty gritty and all that, but where you from and were you raised in church, and sort of what was the progression, and sort of a little bit about where you are today, and a little bit about what got you here.
Well, very early on as a teenager, I found myself caught up, as most teenagers do, with peer pressure and the feeling of acceptance. I found that character flaw of wanting to be accepted everywhere I went, and I think that is a God-given way that He wires us in our DNA, that He wants us to feel accepted. The problem is that I hardwired that. I defragged that, and I wanted to get my acceptance in other things other than the reason that I was created, which is God. And so I began to search out people, places, and things that were giving me that false acceptance, that counterfeit, that generic form of acceptance. And I found it in street gangs. I found it in the drug world. I found it in the trap house. I found it in the streets. I found it in everything that was unhealthy for me, that was willing to show me that love. It was a false sense of love, but it was a feeling of being able to be accepted. And naturally, with being around that enough, I was introduced to methamphetamine, and methamphetamine introduced me to a whole different world, or different type of people. And by the time I realized what had happened, sin had its claws and its hooks embedded in my flesh, and I couldn't get away. I found myself for roughly 15 years, I believe, in active addiction, and 6.5 of that years in a 10-year period of time. At one time, I found myself incarcerated directly as a result of my addiction. In 2006, I paroled out and went into a treatment facility. I began to work the steps of recovery. Was introduced to just the freedom of recovery, my identity in Christ.
What year was that?
That was in 2006 that I went away. I come out in 2008. Went to a treatment facility called Penfield Christian Homes out in Greenville. Went on to a recovery residence and found long-term sobriety. I think it's important for me to go that far back, because what happened to me was I got to a certain place in my recovery, and if anyone's listening that may feel as if they've got this, I would encourage you to maybe check your motives. Only from my personal experience is that after 10 years of sobriety and having a very close relationship with God, I began to fall away little bit by little bit by little bit. And I found myself back in a place that I never thought I'd ever find myself again, and it almost cost me my life. And so these last 15, 16 months have been really eye-opening for me. What I found out that in that time frame was that what I thought I knew about recovery, who I thought I was in Christ, I was just on the surface. And God had to do a lot of breaking, a lot of molding, and a lot of rebuilding, and in the process of this restoration now.
So let me back up just a little bit. So you had 10 years of abstinence, of sobriety.
Correct.
And you found yourself back in some old behavior, and now you're back with some new time. How much time do you have sober?
November the 4th, 2017.
So you got a little over a year.
Yes.
Right? How many months? That was 16 months?
Something like that.
Yeah, awesome. So I just wanted to clarify that for the listeners out there, just keeping up with the timeline. So you'd had 10 years, and you'd kind of fallen into a place of complacency, or had feel like you only scratched the surface and found your way back to a place of darkness, and then you're back with sobriety and a new energy, right?
Right.
All right, cool. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify that for the listeners.
Right. I am sober.
Yeah. Well, I also I think it's important also that we look at long-term recovery and abstinence as a complete and total success. And I don't know that that's necessarily always success, and it certainly is a good thing. But also, too, just because you went out there and did some more research doesn't mean you're a total failure either. No,
it doesn't. It means that there was a breach in my program somewhere that had to be filled. There had to be I had to be reminded that without a relationship with God, that I am nothing. So
let me say this: in 16 months sober, again, you've had 16 months before. Is this 16 months different? And like, what does that look like for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very much different. there's a lot more humility involved, and I can say that with a humble heart, and be okay saying that, and know that my motives are pure when I say that. I believe that pride was my enemy, and that had to be removed. That had to be gotten out of the way. I don't care if you are in. I don't care if you find your primary recovery. First thing, everyone's in recovery from something. It doesn't necessarily mean substance abuse, alcoholism. It could be pornography. It could be gambling. It could be overeating. It could be anything that your struggle is. Only that person knows that particular hang-up, habit, or hurt that they have. But for me, whether you're in church, whether you're in a fellowship like Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, all three of those, all of them across the board speak against watching out for pride. And for me, that's one thing that I try to keep a check on is to remain humble, allow God to be able to direct my life, and most importantly, here on earth, is be willing to take suggestions.
Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about some of the accountability that you have, and I believe you're a member of Change Church down in Grantville, right?
I am.
Yeah, and so talk to me a little bit about what keeps you accountable, what keeps you lined up, and like what are the measures that you have to take for wellness? For wellness,
well, first and foremost, a happy wife, happy life. If that doesn't line up, then everyone's unhappy. I do my very best to try to first take accountability for my own self and my relationship with God, and work on that. From there, I try to allow that to outpour into my home. I try to allow me and my wife to have that personal relationship that we have to have. And then for it to and then down to the children, that we would care for our children like Christ would want us to. And then from there, I'm responsible for my own recovery. My wife can't make me go to meets. My wife can't make me work the steps. My wife can't make me not do the things that got me back out into active addiction, or my children. At the end of the day, it's me. And at the end of the day, it's me building my own network. At the end of the day, it is me within the church. At Change Church, under the leadership of Pastor T.J. Boyd and the other leadership team there, that I have went to several key men in my church. And let me just clarify, it's not just going to church. I had the privilege of actually doing life with my church family. We live life together. We do life together. We interact with each other some way, shape, or form every day of the week. Hopefully every hour, and that's not being exaggerating measures. It's being realistic that within that body, I have given permission specifically to certain individuals that know me best to call me on my stuff. And if they see something, that is out of line, that they can call me on it. And I've also given them permission that when they are going to, not to be worried that I might get mad, because sometimes I don't take that kind of stuff very well. Nobody likes to have their flaws pointed out. And then with NA, God's written me a specific prescription for church and Narcotics Anonymous and the fellowship that I go there, and I try to abide by that and have a healthy balance. And so that's pretty much it. It's a simple program for complicated people.
All right, yeah. So my other question, and so I sought you out specifically because sometimes recovery and early sobriety can look like a chore, and I feel like when you're in the midst of trying to break a habit or change a lifestyle that you've lived for so long, how do you do it with purpose, and how do you do it with passion? How do you do it? And I'm not going to say it's not a struggle and it can't be a job, but how does it get to be more like a lifestyle? Like, what does that look like? The true transformation, and you can behavior modify, but I'm talking about the heart change, the internal, the heart change, the true recovery takes place inside, and nobody can really, no individual, no human really has the power to make that happen for you. So
Tell me a little bit about what that looks like for you. And I feel like, we could get different answers depending upon who we ask, but I feel like, too, I see that in you. I've noticed a heart change in you and a lifestyle change and a way that you do it with purpose and passion and freedom, and you're able to walk through it and just really incorporate it into a lifestyle.
Well, I agree with you, Hank, that the only person that can change this heart is the Lord Jesus Christ. I have not the efforts to be able to change my own heart. I have to be, my prayer is that God, to be willing to be made willing. It was once told to me one time, you talking about how do you get there? Well, with anything in life that's worth having, I was once told that nothing worth having comes easy. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be some sacrifice. There's going to be some pain involved. I don't know if there's anyone that may be listening right now that may be struggling to make it from day to day without not picking up, whether it be a drink or a drug or whatever else that character flaw, that defect may be, that hang up, that habit, that hurt. Maybe it's anger. I don't know. But what I do know is that across the board, your hurt is your hurt, and it's personal, and it means something to you. And so in the beginning, it is a lot of hard work. It is a daily reminder to deny yourself the things that you normally in your nature would want to do. And one of the Bible verses that come to mind is in Romans, where it says be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that takes time. It's not an overnight thing. Mm-hmm. We live in a microwave society. We live in an age where instant gratification is at the tip of our hands with a smartphone, and that's not the case. That's not how God works.
Right. It's true. And I feel like what I'm hearing you say is, it takes time.
It takes time.
It takes time, and I'm identifying with a lot of what you're sharing. Much of that is my very own experience with, time takes time. And the other thing I think about in recovery is you don't know what you don't know, and as much as I think I may know coming in, and as much as I think I may know now at this juncture in my recovery, that life has lessons for me, and that living a lifestyle differently, it looks different all the time, and to continue to show up and be teachable, to continue to show up and be able to find lessons to learn and things, and then also being able to do it with a grateful heart.
With a grateful heart, with a humble heart. I can say that with a humble heart, it's easier to say things and be genuine about it. Saying, the longer that I live, the more that I find out that I don't know. Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody likes to be around someone that knows everything. I'll never know more than what I know right now. I'll just know more about what I know right now as I live. And I have to be humble. I have to be teachable. And I have to stay close.
Sure. Tell me a little bit about the process of restoration, because I also feel, recovery is not only, sometimes in recovery I hear people say, man, if I could just get back to a certain time. And I encourage people to try to not get back somewhere they've been already. I encourage people to be better, the best version of who they could be in the here and now. And tell me a little bit about what that restoration looks like. I know restoration is a process, and it's not an arrival, it's a journey. And restoration has many levels and layers, but in the process of you taking responsibility for your recovery, tell me a little bit about what that restoration process is, and a little bit about that freedom,
Well, I have to be accepting of my failures. I have to be accepting that they are what they are, and until I accept it, I will not be able to find any type of peace in that. I definitely do not want to go back to where I've been, even in my sobriety. From years ago, there was some knowledge that was gained, but if I'm continuing to say to myself, I remember these days when they were better. I'm living in the past. I'm not living in the present, and so therefore, if I'm not living in the present, I'm not allowing myself to be conditioned for the future. As far as restoration is concerned, I went to one of my best friends very early on in this stint of my recovery, and I went to him and I said that I want you to help me with my restoration process. And I knew that at that time I was saying that restoration process was to just stay sober. And I took a whole year for just me. I took a year. And it's been a process that I've learned to bloom where I've been planted. No matter where I'm planted, no matter if it's at the shop, where I work at, no matter whether it's home, no matter whether I have an opportunity to share recovery with someone, no matter even if it's right here with you on this radio station, that I have to accept the present as being what it is. Some days it's going to suck, and some days it's going to be good. But if I can learn to bloom, even in those moments where they suck, as much as they are when they're good, things just have a tendency of just working themselves out. And I don't want my life to be conditional based on how good things are or how bad things are. Something that I'm personally working on right now is that even when things are really stressful, really tiring, really fatigued, things are not going my way, that I'm able to not rest my feelings on my shoulder, and I'm able to persevere with the reality that God's already brought me through much worse than what I'm going through now, and just to be able to be okay in the moment.
Yeah, that's awesome, and that takes work. That's an inside job, and it definitely takes work to find that contentment, find that peace in the moments where where things may not be going the way you want them to go. That's just kind of part of life. So one of the things that we hadn't touched on a lot about, and you've spoken a little bit about, is family. And I know that as men being the leader of the household, how does recovery and how does your restoration process and how does your relationship with God, how does that transpire into the household? And so you're married, right?
Married.
How long have you been married?
March the 3rd, almost coming up on 2 years.
Okay, awesome. And how many children in the house?
We've got, let's see here, I have my daughter, I have my 9-year-old, I have my daughter Desi, my 9-year-old Caleb, I have a 6-year-old Josiah, I have a grandson that lives with us, he's 2. I have Heather and Christian. Heather, Christian, and Dustin are out of the house. They're trying to spread their wings. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids and a grandson.
Awesome.
But I have 4 in the house.
I got you. So never a dull moment.
Never.
Yeah. So coming home, how, on the daily, on the daily life and the routines and that sort of stuff. I mean, I've heard it said oftentimes doing recovery and living the lifestyle change is oftentimes most challenging at home, because those are the folks that see you all the time.
Well, they know that I'm rotten. They know that you see me on hey Hank, I want to smile and how's it going, and sometimes I vent to you and I appreciate you listening. But my family gets to see me when I really let them down. My family gets to see who Wayne Stewart really is behind closed doors. And so I have to remember that at the end of my life, that if I'm going to, Proverbs says that a godly man leaves an inheritance behind to his children's children. And I think that what that speaks loudly to me is that may not necessarily be monetarily. It may be what I'm leaving behind to them that they can't purchase, buy, borrow, or take a loan out on. And so I want to be able to be real with my family. I want them to see the real person, but I have to learn that they've got to see my flaws too, and be willing to admit when I'm wrong. Sure. We don't like doing that. Men don't like doing that. I know it's hard for me to do that, but I have to learn that that's a discipline that I have to admit when I'm wrong. I have to tell my wife very regularly, I'm sorry, I was wrong, please forgive me. Because like I said, I'm rotten.
Well, I also think about, too, the example that it sets for kids and for your wife and being the leader of the household, to be able to show them and say, hey, I messed that up. I'll try to do better on that, and I'll be working on that. And why don't we pray about that?
Right.
And also the example it sets for children. And I identify with that on a personal level as well, is that I'm not always right. And sometimes I have to go back and say, hey, I was wrong. And the example that sets for our kids, that says, you know what, and so many times we want to look put together and we want to be happy, joyous, and free all the time. I don't know if that's necessarily reality, but then also having the ability that when we've done things that may hurt or said things and that we've said or done something that we have the ability to go back and make amends. That we have the ability to really make those wrongs right. And the example that sets for our families can be extremely powerful, for sure.
Right. Well, what that is a picture of is that if we are not going back and making amends in our household, our life, our relationships, we're picking up baggage along the way. And if we're not putting the baggage down from time to time, it's just going to get too heavy to tote. Yeah. We've got to put the baggage down along the way, and it helps to do that daily.
Awesome. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in 3 to 5 minutes.
Even in winter, New Year shipments of 2019 Hondas are coming in hot at the all-new Honda of Noonan. We're rolling out the hottest New Year deals right now on our most popular models. Act now and take advantage of last chance savings on 100 specially marked new 2018 Hondas while they last. Get them while they're hot. Hurry to the all-new Honda of Noonan, just around the corner on Noonan Crossing Bypass, minutes away from Atlanta Metro. Or shop online all the time at HondaofNoonan.com.
At Newlink, WOW, local matters. Local keeps our families and businesses thriving. WOW takes pride in serving the Noonan and Peachtree City communities and supporting Coweta County charities and events. For the fastest local internet, call 770-683-1931 and get up to 100 megs of speed for $29.99 a month. Lock in this price, save for the whole year. It's a great value that locals love.
Join us here, live from Noonan, Georgia, as we present the Health, Happiness, and Harmony Hour, every Wednesday from 10 to 11. I'm your host, Dr. Lewis Boynton. Please join us each week as we have new guests and talk about topics related to the psychological world. We're hoping that you will find interesting and helpful topics that will help you have more health, happiness, and harmony in your life. Join us every Wednesday from 10 to 11 at 99.1 WQEE Rock and Roll Radio.
Tune in the second and fourth Thursday each month for Know Your Rights. I'm your host, Charles Cobble, and we will discuss your rights and have plenty of information on what those rights are. Every second and fourth Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on WQEE 99.1 FM.
Tune in every Tuesday morning from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. for Faith Works with Pastor Jimmy Ellison. Pastor Ellison has the privilege of interviewing leaders in Noonan who are making a kingdom impact, modeling for our community that faith does indeed work. So don't miss an episode of Faith Works with Pastor Jimmy Ellison, Tuesday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., only on WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key.
Feel trapped in a web of fees? As a business owner, you already have enough to worry about than being tangled up in miscellaneous charges. Our Bank Free for Business checking account gives you the freedom to focus on what's important. Or maybe a loan to take your business to the next level? We know one size does not fit all, which is why we tailor our loans to fit your needs. Visit us online at charterbank.net or stop by one of our many convenient locations today. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
WQEE 99 Rock the Key has opportunities for your church to be heard every Sunday. Become a part of our Sunday Sunrise, our evening services. Interested in information? Contact us at 678-673-6318. WQEE 99 Rock the Key, Noonan's home for classic rock and more.
Hi, I'm Tony Chiguardo.
And I'm Mitch Axelrod.
And I'm Rob Leonard.
And we are the Fab Four Free-for-All, an all-talk Beatles radio show.
Heard every Sunday night at 9 p.m.
on WQEE 99.1 FM. The Key, the best variety of music and talk. We talk about the Beatles.
Ever dreamed of being a radio DJ or hosting your own show? Now here's your chance. WQEE 99 Rock the Key is giving you an opportunity to host your own show. If you'd like to get your advertising message across the thousands of listeners throughout the area, here's your chance. Hosting your own show is the way to do it. Perfect for attorneys, realtors, churches, sports talk shows, and more. Contact 678-673-6318 for further information. Host your own show.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter, Brooklyn, was also a motivation for me to go back to school. Every day after work, went straight to school, and it paid off.
At age 26, Kareem finished his high school diploma.
I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Hey, I'm Jimmy Ellison. I'm the pastor here at Noonan City Church. I want to thank you. You'll find as you walk through that we focus on three areas primarily. One is worship, small groups, and local missions. And our purpose is transforming lives for Jesus' sake, helping individuals experience that transformation. And we use these three areas, worship, small groups, and local missions, to help individuals experience that. You'll get a sense of who Noonan City Church is, and I hope that you'll come and worship with us soon. Take care, and God bless.
Around long enough to remember getting up to turn the channels on the TV? That's classic. Classic hits. WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key.
Welcome back to Faith Works. I am Hank Arnold. I am sitting in for Pastor Jimmy today. And back for the second segment with our guest, Wayne Stewart. As we sort of conclude this, we got about 15 minutes left, and some of the other things that I wanted to bring up as far as topics with the remaining piece of the segment is maybe looking at some of the social stigmas that are around addiction. Addiction is one of those that generally has touched everybody's life. There's nobody in the United States that's not been affected by addiction. In fact, just some of the staggering numbers at this point in our nation is that you're more likely to die of a drug overdose than you are a car accident or a gunshot, and that's pretty high. But also, everybody's had some involvement, even if it's not personally, knows someone that's been affected by addiction. And part of what I like to do is talk publicly about recovery, because it reduces some of that shame. It gives other people the ability to maybe come forward and talk about a topic that may not necessarily be the most favorite topic, how do you feel about talking publicly about your recovery?
I'm glad to be one of those people.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're, as far as being labeled, those people. I'm not one of them people no more. I'm one of those people, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It's a sickness. It is. It's a disease. Someone may debate that. I would debate that, on the other side. It is not, I think that in the beginning someone has a choice, but once the addiction sets in, it does become a disease. It's a proven fact. And so I have an older son who's diabetic, right? And I don't chastise him, and I don't yell and scream at him for being a diabetic, or someone that may be suffering with cancer. It's a disease. We don't, just run them into the ground because they've got cancer. Addiction seems to be somewhat of a different stigma when it comes to that, because it affects our behavior, it affects our actions, it affects so many different things, our relationships. And so it is a family disease. It trickles out from family into the community. And I believe without a shadow of a doubt that the number one antidote for fighting addiction is love. Period. I had some people that loved me when I was at my very lowest, and those same people that loved me at my very lowest are the same people that love me now. And accountability. Love and accountability are the things that are the antidote for fighting active addiction.
Yeah. I got to agree with you too on the stigma, and I believe one of the pieces of it that because the behavioral part of it, is really what people see. They don't see what's going on internally in the brain and within the body, and within that thought process, which makes it really difficult for some people to kind of grasp that. But also at the end of the day, you can see how some people may live and sacrifice values and jeopardize relationships. And really deep down, that's not really what people want to do. It's really not what people want to do. And so I believe I also am really grateful to be a person in recovery. I never turn down an opportunity to talk about recovery, especially when people ask me about my restoration process. I think the other piece that families and as well as people that may be struggling with addiction could do, the most important thing they could do is become educated on it. This is a disease unlike a lot of other diseases, is that, if somebody had cancer or had an autoimmune disease or something like that, they would probably do as much as they could to get educated on it. Families would do as much as they could to get educated on it. And I feel like this is one of those those health conditions that oftentimes people don't get educated on it until it gets way on down the road and gets really out of control. So I also want to talk a little bit about HOPE. I've heard the acronym of HOPE is hearing other people's experience. I like that acronym and HOPE. And so for me, my question for you, and I'm sure over the last year and a half, you've had the opportunity to be a vision of hope for other people, which is a really cool thing, which also ties into service. So tell me a little bit about how you're able to be of service to other people that may be struggling, and just sort of that connection, that contact, having been there and done that before.
Well, for many years I thought that my life was centered around doing the things that I'm doing to get sober. In my relapse, I see that God can use those different things for His glory. And I can say now that not only does God use my life as an example as I follow His lead, He's also used my example for people for things not to do. And so I can say that as far as hope is concerned, recovery teaches me that I cannot keep what I have unless I give it away. I have to be able to give away what's been given freely to me if I want to be able to keep it. And one of those things is simply being that I must share my experience, my strength, and my hope. I must share my experience and where I've been, where I'm at, and where I hopefully want to go. I must share where my strength comes from. My strength comes only from the Lord and those people that God uses to use that strength. And my hope is that that God will place me in someone's life today to be able to be an open vessel to be used for His glory. And my hope is for those that are struggling with the same thing that I once struggled with is that they'll be able to get help. One thing that as you talk about the family, one thing that has really been helpful in my recovery, and I think is expedient and imperative as far as recovery is concerned for the family, is that the family must recover together. My wife, and I know she would not mind me sharing this because our life is open to the public. We have that open book, but she works a recovery program herself. Now that's not for the same way I work my recovery program. Sure. Her recovery program is different in healing the household as a home, so she can be the mother and the wife to the home, because I tended to spark a lot of anger in active addiction. Mm-hmm. And so everyone has to recover together in their own way, one day at a time. And that's where the hope comes from, when you begin to see the whole family recover, not just the addict. We have the tendency of stealing the show a lot of the times because a lot of the attention is on us. But the reality of it is that some of the biggest heroes, some of the biggest soldiers in the field of recovery are those wives and those husbands and those children that stand behind their loved one that has made a mockery of the family.
Yeah. That's a great point. And oftentimes the families are scrambling around figuring out what do I do, how do I support them, and don't really know where to go or what to do or what's the right thing to do, what's the wrong thing to do. And they may be getting conflicting information. But I gotta say, man, I feel like too, in just my experience with the family being in recovery, it looks very similar to the recovery of the person that has been addicted. It looks very similar because my experience has been there's accountability, there's intimacy, and when I say intimacy, I mean it's just somebody to be real with about how you're feeling about things and where you're at. And then there's generally some mentorship, and then there's community. All of that stuff that really is the same principles that keep us well, and that's vital, and that's important, and then to be able to share that with one another, So there are a lot of programs for families, and we have some pretty good community resources here in Coweta County that supports family, right?
Correct. Yes.
So I know Celebrate Recovery is extremely influential, and then we have a lot of other programs and fellowships that help support not only the addict, the individual that needs recovery, but also helps support the families. And so I really feel like, too, you said something that was really, really vital, is that oftentimes what's overlooked is what the family goes through.
Yes, it is. Here's what happens. I've seen this a lot of the times that sometimes the addict or the alcoholic will find recovery, and the rest of the family feels like they don't really need any help, and I've seen many times where that person will recover and be successful, and as he recovers and he's successful, the same attention that was all on him in active addiction is the same attention that he's getting or she's getting in recovery. At first he was being scrutinized and mocked and talked about, and now he's being everything's in a positive light. He's still getting all the attention. Mm-hmm. So it has to be balanced out within the home. And for single people that don't have the family, get a family, find a family. And what I mean by that is just because you're not blood doesn't mean you cannot find family. Churches, organizations, support groups, Celebrate Recovery. Wherever there is someone somewhere that will be Christ and be that vessel for you, and will make you feel like family. Yeah.
And the best thing about friends is you get to pick them. You don't always get to pick your family.
That's right.
So you get to pick your friends, which is awesome. I feel like too, hearing other people in recovery sharing their experience allows other people to identify and seek out people that they may have not hung out with before, which is a really cool thing. So that's the importance of that community piece. Really quickly, before we wrap this up, we got a little more time, but I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your church organization, sort of what that feels like, how you can get plugged in, and ways for people to find hope and support.
Well, my church family is the church is in an older building. It was revamped, renamed, and it's about 2.5 years old. The name of that church is Change Church. Pastor T.J. Boyd and Pastor Carl Hill are the pastors there. Pastor Eddie Markwood is the youth pastor there. And I just want to extend a personal invite out to my home church Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Worship service, and 10:45 is the second service with Sunday school classes in between. 6 o'clock evening service on Sundays if you can't make Sunday mornings, and then Wednesday night for Bible study at 6:45. We have multiple children's ministries for all ages, have dedicated children workers. But as far as the Center for Recovery for Addiction, there's a dynamic within our church. I mean, the pastor himself is in recovery and has been for a very long time, well over a decade, that he understands. We understand. There's many there that understand what someone who is wanting to recover early on is going through. And I would encourage you that if you're looking for a church home for someone that is struggling with addiction, or maybe you're not, but just for those that may be struggling with addiction, I can guarantee you that there will be someone that you can connect with me, find me, and I'll be willing to try to meet you where you're at. But it's good to have people that understand you.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that church is pretty much, you just show up and come as you are, meet you right where you are. You can be as involved as you want to be if you just want to come in and just sort of absorb and observe and take it all in and just start there. I think the hardest part oftentimes is just getting started.
Just getting there, just getting started. I can guarantee you that if you come, no matter what service you come, you're going to get your hand shook, you're going to get hugged, you're going to get greeted. It's 42 West Broad Street in Grantville, Georgia. Change Church has a Facebook page, and you can locate us there.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I also want to talk a little bit about a newly formed nonprofit organization here in Coweta County. It's called Coweta Force, which stands for Friends of Recovery for Community Empowerment. And also just to say, anybody struggling with addiction that may want more information, you can always go to cowetaforce.org or go to our Facebook page and send us a personal message. Any correspondence will absolutely be anonymous, and we'll respect your privacy and confidentiality. And maybe we can get you hooked up. And if you're a family member that's not sure where to turn to, Change Church is a great resource. Coweta Force is a great resource. Just encourage you guys to, if you got questions, man, reach out and ask. There's no shame in asking asking about resources that are available. There's no shame in trying to get better. There's no need to suffer in isolation, and pain shared is pain lessened. And so we want to be able to do that. We want to be able to offer relief and connection for community members that may be struggling with addiction, or family members that may not know what to do. Or if we just got volunteers that want to be a part of the process, that would be those are also welcomed as well. So really want to take a few minutes to thank Pastor Jimmy for giving us the opportunity to fill in during his segment. And we will be back again next week for Faith Works on Tuesday morning from 10 to 11.
Thanks for tuning in to Faith Works with Pastor Jimmy Ellison from Noonan City Church. Tune back in here next week for another edition of Faith Works.